everyone, and welcome to today's stream. Today, we are here with Kenya Griffin, and she is going to be talking about how people can volunteer at the VA Maryland healthcare system. But before we begin, I like to remind everyone to smash the like button. And from wherever you're watching, either Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, if you put a comment in the comment section or ask a question in the question section, we can see it in real time and answer it as you need. So welcome, Miss Griffin, and tell us what about all about volunteering at the VA Maryland healthcare system.
Hello, Rosalia. Thank you for having me. Well, first, I want to start with for those who know the Voluntary Service Office, we underwent a new branding, so to speak. So we have a new name that better represents all that encompasses who we are. So we're the Center for Development and Civic Engagement. And that means that we are the place where people come if they want to engage with our veterans, to help our veterans stay engaged with the community, and to find donor support and volunteer support for the VA Maryland healthcare system.
So the VA Maryland healthcare system is a system. So can you tell us a little bit about what that means as a system?
Sure. So we're an integrated system. That means we have 3 medical centers, and those medical centers have inpatient services as well as outpatient services, and that's in Baltimore City, Northeast Baltimore, and Cecil County. That's our Baltimore, Lock Raven, and Perry Point VA medical centers. And then we have 5 outpatient clinics, community-based outpatient clinics throughout Central Maryland.
So can volunteers volunteer at each of those sites? For instance, can a person who lives on the Eastern Shore volunteer at an Eastern Shore CBOC or outpatient clinic, or is it limited?
So for us, it's really based on the need of the locations, the need of the medical center and the staff support that's needed, the need for the patients. So we do have volunteers at many of our locations, and they do a variety of things. So we are open to volunteers who are looking to help.
Great. And can you, what can a volunteer, if someone wants to volunteer, what can they expect to get back? And also, what can they expect to give?
So volunteering is a great way to engage, as I mentioned earlier, with our veterans so they can expect to meet one of the most unique populations in our country, of people who served our country with their lives. So they get great engagement with them. They hear stories, and it's fulfilling because you're really giving of your time and your service. You get to be part of a unique team of other people who work with our veterans. So those are a few things you get. And then we're looking for people. We like to try to match volunteers with positions or assignments that match their skill set. So there's special things they like to offer. We have volunteers who do things from serving at our coffee station. So they give free coffee to our veterans who are waiting for an appointment. We have volunteers who drive patients from their home to an appointment. And they're stationed at one of our medical centers, but they use a donated vehicle that we have. They drive the patients from their homes to their appointments and back home. We have volunteers who help in our offices. So that we have people who help in our mailroom. So there are a variety of assignments available for volunteers to support us. And then we have some volunteers who come as part of a group. So they are considered occasional volunteers. So they may not be here on a regular schedule, but they come with a group and they do bingo. For our volunteers in our community living centers. We have people who bring registered pets for pet therapy. We have volunteers who help with music. So such a variety of opportunities available for people who want to give.
So is there an age stipulation? Like what is the youngest a person can volunteer? And, I'm assuming that anybody who's an adult over any age can also volunteer. But what is your youngest volunteer group?
18 years old is the youngest. So to be an adult volunteer, you have to be at least 18 years old. And then we also have youth volunteers who have to be between the ages of 15 and 17 to volunteer.
Nice. So what are the requirements? I'm sure people just can't show up and say, hello, I want to volunteer. So what do they need to do in order to qualify to volunteer with veterans?
You're right. We take our veterans very seriously, their lives and their healthcare very seriously. So, although volunteering it can be fun and engaging and inspirational, we do go through a process where the volunteers have to complete an application, an interview, and an orientation if they are selected. And then they also have to go through a background check and be fingerprinted. Again, we're in a healthcare environment and we work with a special population. We want to keep them safe. And the volunteers have to commit for adults 18 and over to at least 100 hours and for the youth to 75 hours.
So is that 100 hours a whole year or a particular month?
For the year, yes.
For the year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you break down how many hours are in a year, $100, 100 hours seems like a very small amount of time.
Yeah.
Do some volunteers choose to volunteer longer than 100 hours for a year?
Absolutely. That's just the minimum. And that's just the minimum. And once you are a volunteer, we've had volunteers who start saying, "Oh, this is what I can give," and then they give more. So we look for consistency. If you're going to make that commitment, of course, stick to your commitment. And if you can't, just communicate with us. But that minimum helps us to provide the consistency that the veterans need.
Mm-hmm. And so I noticed that volunteers get honored various times during the year. So can you talk about that?
Sure. Thank you for mentioning that. We're coming up on Volunteer Appreciation Week. We like to call it Volunteer Appreciation Month, but we have a Volunteer Appreciation Week, and during this month and that week at our 3 facilities, we do have awards ceremonies for our volunteers who have given a certain amount of hours, because those hours translate to, if you think about it, they can't fill an employee's position, but the support they provide is it can translate to hundreds and thousands of dollars that the VA can save with the support that they provide. Same thing with the donations. So we like to recognize them for that support. And then we also have a lot of veterans who volunteer, and that connection with the other veterans is priceless, honestly. So we like to recognize them and thank them for that service. And then with those volunteers who go a little above and beyond, I mean, volunteering is already above and beyond. You're giving your time for free, but who go even beyond that. We also recognize the volunteers of the quarter. So if you follow the VA Maryland Healthcare System social media pages, you'll see our volunteers of the quarters are recognized there as well.
So is there anything that to volunteer that people need to bring with them when they come? Like how do they get started to volunteer? You said they go through a background check and all that, but how does that process start?
Well, to start, you can visit our website. If you're interested, you can visit maryland.va.gov. And you can find us under the Work With Us tab on the left menu. And there you can read more about what volunteering at the VA Maryland Healthcare System offers to you, more about all the opportunities. And then you can also find the application there where you can apply. So you complete an application and it gives you our email address to submit that application to us. And then one of our voluntary service specialists will reach out to you to have an interview and discuss what opportunities are available and where you could match up. And then we go from there with the additional onboarding process steps. You can also, if you're in the area at the Baltimore VA Medical Center, 10 North Green Street, if you're at Loch Raven in the Alameda, 3900 Loch Raven Boulevard, you can go into those facilities. Same thing at our Perry Point facility in Cecil County, and ask for our voluntary service office or Center for Development and Civic Engagement office. And you can speak to one of our specialists there and complete an application. So those are a couple of ways where you can start that process.
So how long does it take to, once you submit your papers, before you're accepted to be a volunteer? Like, I'm assuming it's not something that happens in a week or a day since there's a background check.
Right, exactly. So yeah, because there is the background check and there's the interview process, it can take a little while. I would say give the whole process from soup to nuts about a month or so. But stay in touch with us if you feel like you haven't heard anything. And please, once you apply, make sure you're checking your email, or if you've given us some sort of contact information, a phone number, make sure you're checking your voicemail so that helps to expedite the process.
So once people begin volunteering, they sort of form a community. I would guess they sort of form a community and become friends. Have you seen where that happens a lot and where volunteers are there for each other?
Absolutely. Just like those of us who are paid employees, you have your work friends and your lunch buddies. The same thing. I see the same thing happening with the volunteers. They form a unit, and they know they're all part of the same team as volunteers, and then they become part of the whole team of the VA Maryland healthcare system. And we love seeing the volunteers. They wear vests, so they're identified as volunteers. You know when you see them around, so it's great to see them. We've had volunteers who've been with us for 20 plus years. That's not unusual to see volunteers. Even if something happens in their personal lives and they have to stop volunteering for a while, they come back. I just saw a volunteer who I hadn't seen in 5 years. And I said, I haven't seen you in so long. And she said, well, I took time off during the pandemic. My family wanted me to be more careful. So I was ready to come back. And she came back after so many years. So it's a place, it can be a second home to many people. Absolutely.
And so also with the pandemic, we had the volunteer program was paused a little bit. Have you gotten back, has the VA Maryland healthcare system gotten back to its previous numbers, or is there room to grow? And for people who have, maybe were too young to volunteer in the past, or maybe newly retired, is there room for people to actually join up and join the team?
Absolutely. We are looking for more volunteers. I mentioned the volunteer drivers. We're looking for driver assistants in Baltimore. We are looking for volunteers to help with our coffee carts, our coffee stations at Loch Raven, at our Loch Raven outpatient clinic. We had our previous volunteers left the position, and the veterans are looking for a new person to fill in there. We could use greeters in the afternoon. I'm sorry, escorts. So we have volunteers who help to take patients in the building from one location to another. And we need more escorts in the afternoon at the Baltimore Medical Center. So we're looking for that. So we're definitely open.
So you hear it, folks. If you're looking for something to do to make a difference in a veteran's life, the VA Maryland healthcare system has plenty of room for you to volunteer. So let's say people don't have time to volunteer because they're busy or they're working. How else can they support? Can they just donate? What can they donate? Can they donate? And what can they donate?
So donations are always welcome. We have monetary donations and non-monetary donations, which we call in-kind donations. So you can go to the same place on our website, maryland.va.gov, work with us, and you can click on volunteer or donate, and you can find more ways that we accept donations. We have specific accounts that we have funds for different activities and services for veterans throughout the healthcare system. So you can select one of those accounts if you want to donate specifically to something like that. And as far as non-monetary donations, certain items, as I mentioned before, everything is need-based. So we want to make sure that we're giving based on a need. And the same thing applies for donations, especially non-monetary. So if you do want to donate, I just ask that you call the office. And when you visit the website, you can see our phone numbers there to call our office to schedule a time to donate. If it's an item, to see if it's something we can use, if it's something the veterans need, if it's appropriate, because we are a healthcare system and the donations support the healthcare of our veterans. So it has to be appropriate. There's certain equipment that we can't accept, or we have to see if it's appropriate equipment because it's a healthcare system. So we're open to donations, and we look forward to the support. We really appreciate it. Our veterans really appreciate the support.
So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think is really important to know about volunteering or donating at the VA Maryland healthcare system? And about this month, I know this is the month that we celebrate our volunteers. So is there anything I neglected to ask that you think is important?
one thing I want to reiterate is being part of a unique team. So if you are a volunteer with the VA Maryland healthcare system, you're part of a team of employees who've also made the commitment to give back to people who served our country, to give back to people who deserve it, our veterans. So the reward that comes from engaging with veterans and supporting them and knowing that you're giving back and you're doing something is beyond anything else I can mention. But it makes all the difference when I see veterans engaging with the volunteers and vice versa. It's something special to see and to be a part of.
So I understand that at one point there was a volunteer on the phone. Can you talk about that phone volunteer system and how people can form unique relationships even though they've never met, and how one volunteer actually saved a veteran's life? Can you talk about that a little?
Right. So that's called the Compassionate Contact Corps program. And that was started during the pandemic when we weren't doing as much face-to-face volunteering, but we knew some veterans were a little more isolated. And so we had someone who would make regular phone calls to check in with them, just to have conversations, to let them know that they're not alone, and just to have that interaction, that program. And it's on a consistent basis, and we had a volunteer who made his regular call to a veteran and noticed that the veteran sounded different because they had established a connection. He noticed that something was different. His breathing was a little belabored and just a little off. So he asked a few more questions and determined that this person was having a medical issue and was able to call 911 and get assistance for the veteran and saved his life. So yeah,
that's a wonderful, wonderful story.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who is looking for something to do with your time and your energy and your talent, definitely look up. It's on the screen, the website address. So definitely look up and find out how you can either volunteer or donate and make a difference in the life of a veteran.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Kenya, for joining us today.
Thank you, Rosalie. I look forward to meeting all the new veterans.
Yes.
And volunteers.
And whoever gave us the heart out there, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.